Good evening. When I was 6 years old, I believed I could fly. In fact, I knew I could fly. I thought I was the fastest, strongest, most buoyant human in existence, and you couldn't tell this guy otherwise. When I would daydream, when I dreamed, I thought about taking single leaps and floating over meadows and forests and rivers. And you notice I didn't say tall buildings because there were none where I was from. I lived in a tiny town called Abiquiu, New Mexico. It's not even on every map. And we felt rich there because we had so much space to play. We had those fields, we had those forests, we had those rivers and ditches and so much else to do our thing, to explore. And so one day we were doing just that. My siblings and I, we were exploring our territory, and we came upon a puddle, or so we thought. And ironically, it's about this size. It was about 4 feet in circumference, and we were in birth order. So my older sister, Kalima, she went first, and she ran, and she sprinted, and she cleared the puddle, no problem. And then my next sister, Samaya, she followed, and she jogged a little bit. You know, we always had to do a little better than the last one, so it was just a little jog. She jogged and jumped over it, no problem. Then my brother, Yassine, he's a big show-off, big, strong guy. He takes 2 big, slow steps, jumps over it, clears it. So here comes me, super kid, this guy. And I'm like, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to jog. I'm just going to stand right here on this side of this puddle, and I'm going to leap with 2 feet, and I'm going to land on the other side with no momentum. And I did it, jumped off of both feet. I'm in the air, I thrust my little legs in front of me, and I did it. I come down on the other end. My toes are right there on this edge, but my heels are inside of this puddle. And then I slipped in. And you guys, this was no puddle. This was a 17-foot deep well. It was incomplete, so it just looked like it. But here I was with my back to the bottom of this well, looking up at my siblings' panicked faces, afraid for my life. I see their faces, and they eventually become blurred and then black. I hear their shrieks and their shrills, and they're becoming mumbled and muffled, and then mute. Nothing. I'm by myself. A reflexive gasp for air resulted in a mouthful of mud with dead mosquitoes in it. And I'm just sinking to the bottom. And I hadn't even finished my swim lessons yet, so I didn't know what to do. But surely I was going to eventually come to the end of this bottomless pit, and I was going to use my super strength to jump back out of there. But the bottom never came. Instead, something else. I don't know if it was an angel or a divine intervention or just my fight or flight reflex. It just came and it started to buoy me up back to the top. And when my face broke the surface, I could see those faces that were in shock. And I can hear words that I'd never heard before, like dead, death, died. And then my sister, when everybody was shocked, she reached in, my sister Samaya, with a stick, and she just yanked me out of there. It was a real mama lifting a car to save her baby moment, and it saved my life. But my life was never the same from then. I left a little something in the bottom of that well. I left a little bit of that superhuman confidence at the bottom of that well. I came out of that well with a little bit more fear. And I came to know later on that that sense that I had before the well was our most natural human state. Every single person, every human has they have that natural, that supreme confidence. Dr. Naeem Akbar, a renowned psychologist, says that we're all born with supreme confidence, unencumbered by the weight of oppression, but society conditions it out of us. So that was the first thing that started to make me go inward and be less demonstrative with my skills and my talents. That was the first thing, but it wasn't the last. I was a gifted and talented kid. I was somebody who raised my hand and knew the answers for everything. I was someone who was smart. I read encyclopedias for fun. And I started to notice that the more I did this, the more I would hear words like conceited, cocky, arrogant. And I knew that there was a negative connotation to it. And it made me say, I don't want to be conceited, cocky, or arrogant. I don't think I'm better than anybody. I wished I could swim when I was in the well. I couldn't do that like some of my friends could. But the things that I could do, I was happy to display them until people kept telling me, cocky, arrogant, conceited. So I went inward again. And this isn't just my story. Societal norms often punish boldness. We see it in the confidence gap with women who are rising through corporate America, and they have the requisite education. They have the requisite, they have the experience. But their experiences tell them to tamper down their brilliance and their confidence. And by the time they get to the level that they deserve, they don't have as much confidence as their peers or even some of their subordinates. And that's a confidence gap. We also see it with racial stereotypes like black men are supposed to be athletic, but not intellectual. Or if you are an athlete and you're a football player, you're not supposed to be the quarterback because that's the cerebral position on the field. And these things, they are a punishment of society. You see, these stereotypes become self-fulfilling prophecies. So I had to break out of this shell. We moved from Abiquiu, New Mexico to Atlanta, Georgia. So this utopia, this place that I grew up in, I was uprooted from there and then put right in the middle of the hood, the ghetto, a place where dope was being sold, where people were getting shot. I learned what it sounded like when a bullet went past your ear before I turned 13. And I knew that I didn't want to be in this situation, but this is the first time that I noticed that my family did not actually have a lot of means. This is the first time I realized we didn't actually have currency. So I needed to get out of the situation that was perpetuating me. I needed to get out of the blocks that were calling people to drugs, calling people to rob, and all these different things that I saw my peers succumbing to. But thankfully, I was able to come across a gentleman who taught me how to break out of my shell. His name was Abdullah Rabbani. He owned Thirsty Camel Sales, and Thirsty Camel Sales printed family reunion T-shirts. And there was a group of people just like me, maybe 5, 6, 10 of us, and we would compete with each other. And this competition started to break me out of this shell. We wanted to compete to pull T-shirts off the most perfect way, to fold T-shirts. We were competing about everything. So it started to break me out of my shell to say, I can use my strategy, I can do these different things to get out of here. But then we went out after it was time to sell these T-shirts, whether it was a festival or an HBCU classic football game, or if it was a spring break event, and we had to go out and sell these shirts, we would compete to see who would make the most money. So here's me still in my shell, showing up at some festival, and I'm like, you want a T-shirt? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. Do you want a T-shirt? No. I'm like, oh, man, this is hard. And then I'm coming back to the car. My friends are licking their thumbs, just count hundreds and thousands. Oh, no, I got to figure this out. I've got to figure out a way to break out of this shell. And then I would watch Abdullah Rabbani. And he was a tall, dark, handsome, charismatic guy. He would leave with dozens of shirts on both shoulders. And he would walk into a crowd like he belonged anywhere he wanted to go. And he would walk up to the first lady, the first group of ladies that he would see, and he'd say, hey, I've got your souvenir T-shirt here. What's your size, a medium? And she clearly wasn't a medium. And she'd be like, ooh, I wish. You got that in extra large? And he's like, I sure do, and it's 100% cotton, so it'll shrink a little if you do. And I watched this, and he was just smooth with it, and I'm just taking notes. I want to be like that. I need to break out of this shell, because what we saw is that when you break out of this shell, when you show this charisma, this boldness, it's attractive to other people. People believe that folks who are bold and charismatic are actually more trustworthy and worthy of following. This was me at some of those events. And then the second picture is when we grew up a little bit and we put these principles in practice, this charisma, this boldness, and we put it into a company that we called Our World Shirt Company. Me and my friends right there on the right, that's me in the black sitting on top of the truck. We would use these principles to attract people. We presented this image of grandiose success, ridiculous success. We had these audacious trucks that we would deliver our shirts in, and it made people think that we were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and it attracted more and more people. Those who take risk and exude confidence are perceived as more competent. We learned that, and it made us richer and gave us currency. So the more that we built up, Our World kept growing. I was the spokesperson. I was in charge of product placement marketing, and I did all the writing. So I ended up doing some debating. I ended up doing a lot of copy for different campaigns that made it across the country. I had to debate shock jocks and law enforcement officers because one of our lines was very controversial, and I didn't even believe what I was saying, but I learned how to argue for it. So what we did was create something out of nothing. We created something out of audacity. We learned that audacity is currency. So I have a theory that you only have one career. No matter how many internships, how many different jobs that you have, it's one career. And if you're not taking a tool from each part of this career and using it to become your ultimate professional goal, then you're missing the point. And I ended up having to have the audacity at some point to leave Our World because Our World and me, we weren't seeing eye to eye on some things. I still love them, but we just weren't seeing eye to eye. So I left, and I had the audacity to go to the hotel industry. And I still had issues. I knew that I wanted to be a speaker. I knew I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless. I wanted to write books. I wanted to do all these things, but I still had certain issues. Now I want you guys to do one thing. Look at your neighbor in the nose, right here at the top of their nose, right? Look at the top of their nose, and look at them, and look. It looks like they're looking you in the eye, doesn't it? And that's something that I learned in the hotel business. I had problems looking people in the eye, but I knew that people wanted you to look them in the eye to trust you. So I learned how to do that, and I learned how to look people in the eye. I learned how to project my voice across a lobby and tell them that their room wasn't ready yet, but with a charismatic and bold way so that they were like, you know what, I like this guy. This hotel is okay. But if I hid behind the desk and I was quiet and I was like, sorry, your room's not available, then they would hate that stay. So those teams and those jobs, that team was successful. The scores kept going up. I kept getting promoted. And then I was able to put all that together just this past year, when I ran for office here in Oklahoma City. And people told me that I was crazy because I'm not from Oklahoma City. I didn't grow up in the church. And they said the only people that are going to vote for you is your immediate family and maybe a couple of friends. But nobody's going to vote for you because you're not from here. You got a weird name. And we just don't believe it. And I said, you know what? Hold my beer. I don't drink beer, but watch me. And that audacity, that same audacity that we took from Thirsty Camel to Our World to the Hampton Inn, they started to plant seeds. I said, you know what? When my consultant said this is the card they wanted me to use, I said, that's not going to work for me. I did some modeling in my day. I know exactly what I'm doing. I was bold. I'm audacious. So this is what mine is going to look like. And we put this thing all over the place, and they said, oh, you thirst trapping. I got the arm up and the sleeve. And I said, you know what? If they put me in the group chat because I got a little arm showing, then so be it. When's the last time y'all had a political candidate in y'all group chat? So it's all good. That's that boldness that we were talking about. And you know what it did? It sparked seeds. It gave people an idea of what they wanted to do in political office. It inspired other people. It made people think about politics that never did before. So we did our job. I didn't get the appointment, but it was more than just my family that voted for me. Okay, and now I have considerable political power in this area, and a lot of people are seeking Haqq for what we've got going on. So audacity led me to where I am today. Audacity is what made somebody invite me to do what you see me doing right now. It led me to this stage. But what do we do with this information when we have it? Now that we know that Audacity is currency, what do we do with that information? My wife and I, we own Peace of Mind. Well, we're not supposed to advertise, but we own Peace of Mind Pediatrics. It's a pediatric clinic, and all we do is focus on children. And that's what it's all about. Once we learn something, then we have to be laying down the groundwork for future generations. And what we want to think about is, how do we raise bold, risk-taking children? And, for our religious folks, we think about Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. We think about the Bible. We think about the Quran. We think about the Torah. And it's ironic to me that we think about these leaders, somebody who goes against the Pharaoh, or Jesus when he's flipping over the money tables and going against the Romans, or Muhammad when he's going against the Quraysh in Mecca. And then we say, you should be humble, you should be meek. The meek shall inherit the earth. And I just disagree with that. I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that that was the lesson, because when you look at those people, they're very audacious, they're very bold, and they're not meek. Meek means someone who is submissive, and the only thing that they were submissive to was the mission that was given to them by their Creator. So in order to raise these kind of kids, we have to give them an idea of humility that does not include being meek and overly submissive to man. They should be submissive to their calling, and that's it. To the calling that they know, because they're given these tools and they're inward. We have to celebrate them displaying their gifts and not hit them because of doing it. Not spare the rod and spoil the child. We have to get away from these thinking. Because if you hit a kid, you lose them in today's age. So what's my closing, right? I ran out of time a little bit. I got a little carried away on some of these stories, but I think you guys get where I'm going. What is your well? That's what I want you to leave here with. What's your well? What's the thing that's blinding you from your own potential? What's the thing that's muting that voice that's telling you that you can be more, you can do more, you can have more? What's the thing that's keeping you from showing your full brilliance and potential? What's the thing that's preventing you from being audacious? What is preventing you from leaping? So I'm asking you today to think about that, go to that puddle, go to that well, and leap. And I want you to think about the fact that audacity is currency, and the world is waiting for you to spend it. Thank you.